all across urban India as well as rural India. Because one thing is that change is always a constant in life, and change brings about desirable and undesirable things. And there is no way that any single institution or any single legal, semi-legal structure can actually regulate it and make it palatable, suitable to each individual's tastes and preferences. The city of Venice, for example, it's such a beautiful city, but if you see the city of Venice, you'll find that people who were originally living in Venice have now moved out of the city and bought houses elsewhere. So it's not just Goa which has undergone a change. I think all over the world, tourism destinations, when they develop, development is a process which you cannot just put it into a pipe and say that this is the way it's got to flow. There is some amount of randomness to it. There is some amount of diversity to it, and the changes it brings are sometimes desirable and sometimes also undesirable.
Well, there's this exercise that I start off with my students when I teach at the BBA Travel and Tourism program in college. The first question that we ask them is, what is it about Goa that you like the most? And then they will start off saying that, oh, we like the beaches, or we like the churches. The next question is, who is a Goenka? And then they look at me confused. And then I say, come on, tell me who is a Goenka? And then after looking at each other's faces and laughing and cracking jokes and all, they'll be like, ma'am, I'm not sure who a Goenka is. So, that amount of confusion today our youth has about who really a Goenka is, and that's the amount of disconnect that they feel towards our own Goan state. What about the tourists who visit our state? We talk so much about Goa has beautiful beaches, Goa has beautiful heritage sites, but when they come and they actually experience Goa, I'm sure they go back to the same confused states that my students have back in classrooms. So yes, definitely tourism, maybe because of economic reasons, we may try to focus on certain areas or certain sectors which bring in revenues to the government.
Amaya had to say about the exclusivity of a particular area. I think it's very important that the inherent strengths of a particular area come forward in tourism. And I would agree with Tanya when she says that do we really do something which is in a total disconnect with the people of Goa. And I think today's tourism is a disconnect. Casinos are a certain disconnect. There's disgust over it. Some people are scared of the casino operators. They have destroyed the area around the Mermaid Garden and around South Tome area. There's nothing left. That's become a pee zone. People come out of the casino in the middle of the night and pee into those heritage structures. It stinks. It's terrible. And you don't know whether you'll get hit in the middle of the night, that they're seeing goon-looking characters all over the place. Do we really need that? Is casino tourism something which Goa needs? When Goa is good at art, Goa is good at culture, at music, at heritage, at food for that matter. This is the axis on which tourism should rest. And I personally believe, and I've been saying that all the time, that tourism today almost rests on the axis of sex, drugs, booze, sleaze, prostitution, gambling. I do believe that there is a very deep reason why this is happening. There is a reason that the culture of Goa is sought to be destroyed. And this is where we have to be very aware of. We have to understand that there are bigger forces at play. And you see the moment you come down from the aircraft, the first thing you see is a casino ad. The moment you come into Pancham, you see those road dividers, again casinos. So why should that not be stopped? The same way as we have stopped cigarette advertising or liquor advertising. If I was, say, the Chief Minister of Goa, I would have stopped it. I would have said nothing to you. You have your casinos, fine, you'll be there. But why do you lure people? You lure them in every which way. So a complete change is required if we are going to save Goa, because like mining destroyed Goa, tourism is going to be the next albatross, the next tiger in our bed who's going to devour us. And that will be the end of Goa. And we have to be firm. There's no halfway measures here. We have to be very clear, we have to be strong in what we say, and we have to say it aloud. That's what I would like to say for the moment.
Moderate the session, and there's a special issue on Goan identity. In 2012, if I'm not mistaken, the August issue of Goa Today, where several people have given their comment, Goan as well as non-Goan. And a few points that I've just jotted down is like Goan or Goa is a southern state, is an identity, has an identity and has common harmony. People are hospitable, a quiet and peaceful ambience and that attracts people to Goa. The quality of life. Yeah, we are talking about cleanliness, for example. Where are we about the cleanliness? Which state we have reached? Panjim was considered to be one of the cleanest cities in Asia, once upon a time. What is it? We say cleanliness twice, but I also pronouncing properly the word. But everywhere I see, just come to the complex of the Goa's Nariman point. Behind the walls, just look behind the walls. And why behind the walls? The dump of the municipality, the waste dump next to the central library, all the leakage of the water, rainwater, would drain into the river. So I requested Harold to carry an article. I pointed out because I had foreigners, researchers coming and asking me, that is going into the river. I am not going to the beach here in Goa. Straight into the river. So I asked Palishan, why don't you carry it? And he did carry the article, was carried by Hindustan Times. And now they are digging to put a trench. It was straight into the river. So this is what we do not want. We want that cleanliness should be there, so people are attracted to what is good about Panjim. And it's a symbiosis of Eastern and Western culture, which give uniqueness to all of us, the Hindus, the Christians, and we had quite a sizable, let's say 5% of Muslims in Goa, which are different from the today's Muslims that have come and settled in Goa. The Goan Muslims are different from them. Yeah. Then I'll ask Mihir for his comments on what we have spoken now.
Mihir, your comments on what four of us have spoken here.
Yeah, two points. I want to make 2 points. The first was, of course, what Armando said, and I think he was talking about the axis of sex, prostitution, and corruption. But we also need to look at the kind of tourists that we are attracting at the moment. The kind of busloads or trainloads of tourists who come to the beaches and then who are only there to lurch at the women. In fact, I had experienced it last year when first I was walking with my sister, who is younger than me and who is prettier than me. They were looking at her, they were trying to photograph her. Then I said, okay, I can't take this. I started to walk with my mother, who is a 60-year-old woman, and they were trying to photograph her, and they were looking at her. So we need to ask, really, is this the kind of tourism that we want? Are these the kind of tourists that we want to attract to Goa? Instead of attracting cultural tourists who are more interested in the culture and the rich cultural heritage of Goa, which to pick up on Tanya's point, also links to our Goan self-identity. If we promote our cultural heritage, and we see that there are lots of tourists who are interested in this, it makes our self-identity and our self-pride also much, much higher.
Yeah, can you address something about what Amaya said?
Amaya was, I found those points very, very interesting. He seems to be a very wise man because he realizes that there is only so much that you can do planned in terms of planned tourism, but I think we need to move more in the direction, we need to ask ourselves what direction do we need to go in? Is this the direction that we are going right now, where you have the mass tourism where people are coming and in the movies or going and visiting, or do we want to have a better kind of tourist who is more interested in looking at our heritage, at our churches, rather than paying 1,000 rupees and going to this famous bikini beach that was there in the media a few years ago?
See, firstly, I think we should move away from bashing to constructive dialogue. I think this is the first suggestion that I would like to place. Because it's very easy to criticize existing order of things, and try to absolve ourselves of the responsibility of why this situation has come to such a level today. Let's begin with individual responsibility. Moderator talked about the garbage problem. Where does the garbage come from? It doesn't fall from the sky. It comes from each of our individual households. So where is individual responsibility in terms of segregating garbage? How many people over here in this room actually segregate their garbage? If you go to the city of London today, you will find every place, it is citizens who cooperate with the government machinery. So you have people who do segregation much more detailed than what you and I do. So people are having 4 fraction segregation for dry waste, and it's done very, very methodically, religiously, scrupulously, without anybody having to police them. So I think we have to get away from this magic wand mentality that all Indians have in general, looking at some great avatar to appear out of nowhere and lead us from darkness into light. I think that is a very, very shallow and superficial mentality, and we must abandon it, disown it with immediate effect, and take responsibility, each one of us. I have seen so many times when I take a daily trip to my office across the Mandavi bridge, there are so many times when there are cars registered from Goa who've eaten probably an ice cream candy and thrown the wrapper on the road. So let's begin, like charity begins at home, let responsibility also start from home. Let us each take individual responsibility for our actions, and I think if that mindset comes up collectively, you will find that there will be some changes. Secondly, as far as identity is concerned, see, identity is a very complex subject. If you look at it anthropologically, socially, sociologically, psychologically, identity is a very complex issue, and not only in Goa but all over the world, identity has come under stress. Because if you see, history, you will find that change has happened very, very rapidly in the 20th century as compared to any other century preceding it. And therefore, the kind of stress that change has generated vis-a-vis identity, that is showing different kinds of manifestations. So I think when we look at the issue of identity today, we have to look at 2-3 things. Number one, we are all citizens who have on a local perspective. So while we have local affiliations, we have global thinking. Because of the internet, because of the interconnectedness that exists. This helps us to discover common values. It's not something which is negative, but it's actually positive. It reinforces the fact that this is actually a universal brotherhood, and all over the world, different cultures, different people share largely universal values. Secondly, it is also necessary to preserve what is distinctive and unique about the culture. So these are traditions, in terms of culture, in terms of heritage, in terms of cuisine, in terms of theatre, arts, whatever it be. So I think there has to be a focus on preserving distinctive features of one's own identity. The third is that the transmission of this identity. I think that is the point which Tanya mentioned, the question which students ask. So this is a thing where, again, how do you transmit this identity? So this is, for this people need to understand the very, very complex issue of identity to begin with. Thirdly, I think, the question of when you are creating alternative access, yes, there are many things that are unsavory about tourism as it exists today. But this is a reality which confronts us. So if you see, for example, the coastline of Goa. I mean, the coastline of Goa as it was, I used to visit Goa when I was a small, I was a school boy, maybe in the 6th and 7th standard, and I remember Kalangut beach at that time, and I remember I see Kalangut beach today. So yes, there are certain unsavory developments which have happened in the last 15-20 years. But there's no way you can turn that clock back in the next 1 year. And I think that if the axis on which tourism rests has to change, it is very important that we develop products which actually make it more palatable for people to use those products than some others which people may have reservations about. I'll give you a small example. One of the things which I thought when I was in the tourism department is the Department of Tourism has a piece of land on the top of the Aguada Plateau, which was leased out to the Taj Group. So one of the thinking that I had was to perhaps put up something like a Lego land over there. Now the moment you put up a Lego land or some other family destination, you suddenly have large number of families coming in. When you have families coming in, all the so-called, the ill effects of tourism, they suddenly, because you actually created a demand for the right kind of product. So like there is Gresham's law in economics that bad money drives good money out of circulation. So here you can reverse that law. So if you get